The sky burned red above the broken bridge. Smoke drifted across the canyon, moving slowly like a silent storm. Pieces of shattered metal and broken vehicles covered the road, and small fires burned where energy blasts had struck hours earlier. The bridge stood alone between two cliffs, a long, narrow path over a deep, empty space below. Sergeant Daniel Hale stood at the center. He did not move much, only his eyes shifted, watching the horizon carefully. His armor was scratched and damaged. One side carried dark stains where blood had dried. His rifle rested against his shoulder, steady despite the exhaustion pulling at his body. Behind him, far beyond the curve of the road, transports were loading civilians. Thousands of people were escaping through the mountain passes. Families, injured soldiers, and workers moved quickly, trying to reach safety before the alien army arrived. Daniel was the last line between them and the enemy. He knew that, and he accepted it without complaint. The wind blew ash across his boots. The silence before battle felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Then movement appeared in the distance. Alien soldiers stepped forward through the smoke. Their shapes were tall and graceful, their armor smooth and shining under the red sky. Blue lights glowed faintly along their weapons. They advanced slowly at first, careful and controlled. Daniel adjusted his stance. His breathing stayed calm. Training and experience guided every movement. He had been fighting this war for years. The Varin Dominion had arrived suddenly, descending from the stars with power humanity could not match. Cities had fallen. Fleets had burned. Entire worlds had surrendered. But humans had not stopped resisting. And Daniel was one of those who refused to step aside. The first shots came quickly. Energy beams struck the bridge, sending sparks and fragments flying. Daniel moved behind a broken barrier and returned fire. His rifle echoed loudly across the canyon. One alien fell, then another. The enemy adapted immediately, spreading out and using the wreckage for cover. Their movements were precise, almost beautiful in their efficiency. Daniel kept firing. Each shot mattered. Each second mattered. Minutes passed like hours. Smoke thickened. The air grew hotter. Eventually, the alien soldiers slowed their advance. They stopped just outside effective range and waited. Daniel frowned slightly. They were not retreating. They were waiting for something. A deep sound rolled across the bridge, heavy footsteps that carried power with every movement. The alien troops moved aside respectfully. A single figure approached. The alien warlord. The armor was darker than the others, marked with glowing patterns that shifted slowly like living light. A long cloak moved behind the figure, even though the wind had faded. Daniel watched silently. He felt the change immediately. This was not just another soldier. This was the commander. The warlord stopped several meters away. Neither spoke at first. Finally, a calm voice came through the translator. "You stand alone." Daniel did not answer. The warlord continued. "You defend a position already lost." Daniel checked the charge on his rifle and replied quietly, "Not yet." The alien tilted its head slightly, studying him. "Our scans show you have remained here for many cycles without rest. Your forces have withdrawn. Why do you remain?" Daniel glanced briefly over his shoulder toward the distant mountains. "Because people are still leaving," he said simply. The alien's eyes narrowed, curious. "You believe one soldier can stop an army?" "I don't need to stop you forever," Daniel said. "Just long enough." The warlord seemed to think about that. Silence returned. The battlefield felt strangely calm despite the destruction around them. Daniel suddenly fired. The shot struck the warlord directly, but the energy shield absorbed the impact without damage. The alien did not react with anger. Instead, something like interest appeared in its expression. "You choose defiance, even when logic says surrender."
Daniel shrugged slightly.
Boo! Humans don't always follow logic. The warlord removed its helmet slowly. Its face surprised him. Smooth features, pale skin marked with faint glowing lines, and eyes that reflected light like metal. Just different. Your species fights even when victory is impossible. Daniel leaned against the barrier briefly, catching his breath. Maybe we just don't like being told what's impossible. Heavy vehicles hovered above the ground. Lines of soldiers waited silently for orders. Daniel understood what that meant. The final attack was coming. He felt tired, but not afraid. He remembered training days, quiet moments with his unit, laughter around small fires before missions. Most of them were gone now. But their voices still pushed him forward. The warlord stepped closer. "You could surrender," it said.
"You would be treated with respect." Daniel shook his head slowly. "Not my job." The alien watched him for a long moment.
"Humans are strange," it said finally. Daniel smiled faintly.
"Yeah, we get that a lot."
Suddenly alarms sounded among the alien ranks. Signals flashed across their armor displays. Something unexpected had happened elsewhere on the battlefield. The warlord turned slightly, listening to incoming data. Daniel saw the moment. He moved quickly, firing again and forcing the enemy soldiers to take cover. Chaos returned to the bridge as battle resumed. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke rose higher into the sky, and through it all, Daniel kept standing, step by step, shot by shot.
Second by second.
He was not trying to win. He was buying time. Because somewhere behind him, ships were lifting into the sky, carrying thousands toward safety. And as long as he stood, the bridge remained human. Smoke thickened until the bridge looked like a shadow floating in a red sky. Daniel Hale moved from cover to cover, using broken vehicles and cracked concrete like a map he had memorized with his feet.
Every time he fired, he forced the alien line to pause. Every time the alien line pushed forward, he made them pay in time.
Time was all he needed. Behind the ridge, the last refugee transports were still loading. He could not see them from here, but he could imagine it clearly. Crowded ramps, tired faces, small hands holding onto worn bags, medics guiding the injured, pilots checking fuel and navigation. The war had taken so much. Daniel refused to let it take the people, too. A blue beam sliced across the air and struck the barrier near his head. The concrete cracked, and dust sprayed his face. He blinked it away and stayed calm, though his heart hammered like a drum. He looked down at his ammo count. Low. He had expected that. He had planned for it. Daniel reached into a pouch and pulled out a small metal cylinder. It was not a grenade. It had no explosive charge. It was something else, an old device from Earth's early electronic warfare programs, upgraded and modified by engineers who no longer slept. He thumbed a switch and placed it on the ground beside the barrier. A quiet hum began. So quiet he could barely hear it over the distant impacts. The device sent out a broad pulse, not strong enough to destroy anything, but strong enough to irritate sensors and confuse the clean alien targeting systems. For a few moments, their perfect accuracy would become human level. That was all he needed. He leaned out, fired twice, and moved again. The alien troops adjusted quickly, but not quickly enough. Their shots drifted wider, their formation loosened. Their communication lights flickered as they recalculated. Daniel ran, boots pounding the bridge, and slid behind the wreck of a burned-out transport truck. His shoulder ached. His back felt like stone. Every breath burned. He told himself the same simple words, again and again. Just one more minute. Just one more minute. Across the bridge, the warlord stepped forward again, moving with a patience that felt almost unfair. The alien commander did not rush. It did not show anger. It watched Daniel like a puzzle that refused to solve itself. When the warlord raised a hand, some of the alien soldiers stopped firing. A strange quiet spread across the battlefield, broken only by the crackle of small fires and the low groan of the bridge shifting under stress.
The warlord's voice came again, calm and clear.
You are slowing an army with one body. Daniel did not answer at first.
He kept his rifle aimed, his eyes fixed on the commander. The alien continued.
This is not efficient. It is not logical.
Daniel breathed in and out slowly. Humans aren't built for efficiency, he said.
We're built for stubbornness. A faint change crossed the warlord's expression, almost like amusement, but it was gone quickly. Your people are already losing this war, the warlord said.
You know this. Daniel glanced at the sky, where distant clouds glowed from orbital fighting far beyond sight. He had seen cities burn. He had watched the Dominion fleets arrive like a storm. He knew the scale. But he also knew something else. Wars were not decided only by ships and weapons. They were decided by spirit. Maybe... Daniel said quietly. But not today. Not on this bridge. The warlord studied him.
You speak as if this place matters more than the war itself.
Daniel's jaw tightened. It does to me. The alien paused again, then asked, What is behind you that you value more than your own life? Daniel felt the question hit deeper than he expected. He could have answered with strategy. He could have said civilians and left it at that. But something about the warlord's tone was different. Not soft, not kind, but real. So he said the truth.
Kids, Daniel said. Mothers. Me, you.
Old people who can't run. People who can't run. My people. The warlord's eyes flickered, as if the translator had trouble with the weight of those words. You are not their leader, it said. You are not their ruler.
No, I'm just a soldier.
Then why sacrifice yourself for strangers? Daniel's answer came before he could stop it. Because someone did it for me once. The warlord did not speak for a moment. The alien army behind it shifted nervously, but the commander kept one hand raised, holding them in place. Daniel could feel the pressure of that army like a wave waiting to crash. He knew he could not hold forever. He just needed the right moment. A distant roar rolled across the valley. Not an explosion, something heavier, more controlled. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He recognized the sound.
Engines. Human engines.
From behind the mountains, a low line of fast-moving aircraft rose into view. They flew close to the cliffs, using the terrain to avoid enemy scanners. Their shapes were old, patched, and scarred. Earth-built attack craft that should have been retired years ago. But humans did not throw away what still worked. The aircraft came in a tight formation, like a flock of angry birds. Daniel's heart lifted for the first time in hours. Not reinforcements. A rescue. The lead craft fired flares and decoys. Bright points of heat burst into the air, confusing alien sensors. Then the planes launched their real payloads. Not huge bombs, not city killers, but smart charges designed to break a formation and force a pause. The explosions hit the far end of the bridge approach, sending smoke and debris into the air. Alien vehicles pulled back, their hover systems wobbling as the ground shook beneath them. Daniel seized the moment. He stood and ran. He sprinted toward the center of the bridge, where old support beams rose from the canyon like ribs. His boots hit the cracked concrete with hard echoes. The wind whipped at his torn shoulder plate. Alien fire resumed, but the interference device in the sudden air attack made their aim less precise. Shots struck the bridge behind him, not him. Daniel reached a damaged section of railing and dropped to one knee. He pulled out a second device, smaller and covered in human warning labels. This one was not for sensors. This one was for the bridge itself. He pressed it against the steel support and activated it. A low beep sounded, then a steady pulse of green light, a shaped charge, designed to cut metal cleanly, not explode wildly. Engineers had placed them here days ago, hidden under repairs and camouflage. If Daniel triggered the full sequence, the bridge could be dropped into the canyon. It was not a victory. It was an escape. He would cut the enemy's path, and he would likely be on the wrong side when it happened. Daniel stared at the blinking light. He did not flinch. Then the warlord's voice sounded again, closer now.
You intend to destroy the bridge? Daniel looked up. The warlord had advanced during the chaos, moving fast now, cloak snapping behind it.
The alien soldier stayed back, uncertain, while the commander came forward alone. It stopped several steps away from Daniel.
Its eyes locked onto the device. You would rather die than let us pass, the warlord said.
Daniel kept one hand near the trigger control.
Pretty much,
he replied. The warlord's face tightened, not with rage, but with something harder to name.
You believe this will change anything?
Daniel stared back.
It will change something, he said.
It will change today. The warlord stepped closer again. Slowly, carefully. If you trigger it, you will fall with it. Daniel's voice stayed steady. Then I fall. The alien paused, then said something unexpected. Do you want to live, Daniel Hale? Daniel froze for half a second. The warlord knew his name.
How do you know that? The warlord pointed subtly toward its own temple. Your armor carries a tag.
Your radio carries old signals. Your language is not difficult for our systems. Daniel's grip tightened on the control.
Are you here to talk, he asked, or to take the bridge? The warlord looked past him for a moment, toward the mountains, toward the distant transports that Daniel could not see.
Then it looked back at him.
I came for you, the warlord said.
Daniel let out a humorless laugh. Lucky me.
No, the warlord replied.
You do not understand. I came because the reports about you were...
unusual. Daniel blinked once, confused despite himself.
The warlord continued. You have been observed in 3 battles.
You appear when retreat is ordered. You hold positions until others escape.
You do not seek glory. You do not take trophies.
You do not broadcast victory. Daniel swallowed, his throat dry.
So, you stalked me, he said. The warlord's eyes did not move. I studied you. Daniel's mind raced. Alien commanders did not study single soldiers unless those soldiers mattered, and he was just one man. Unless, in the alien mind, one man could become a symbol. The warlord took another small step forward, lowering its hands. It did not raise a weapon. It did not threaten. It simply spoke.
In the Dominion, it said, those who show such endurance are taken into command.
Their will is used. Their strength is honored. Daniel stared at it, trying to find the trap.
I'm not joining you, he said flatly.
The warlord nodded once, as if it had expected that. I did not say you would, it replied. I asked if you want to live. The charge was armed. He had minutes, maybe less.
You can't bargain, Daniel said. Not now. The warlord's voice became quieter, but not weaker.
I can, it said, because if you destroy this bridge, you deny my army and you embarrass my fleet. But you also create something worse. Daniel frowned. Worse than an invading army.
The warlord's eyes sharpened.
You create a story, it said. A story of one human who stood alone and forced the Dominion to stop. He had not thought of it that way. The alien continued. Stories are dangerous. They spread in ways weapons do not. My empire understands fear and control, but stories break control. Daniel stared at the warlord, stunned by how honest it sounded. So what? Daniel said carefully. You want to stop a story? The warlord hesitated for the first time. Then it said, I want to understand why your kind creates them. Daniel's hand hovered over the trigger control. The air attack above was fading. The human aircraft were turning away, running low on fuel. Alien anti-air systems were already recalibrating. Time was running out. Daniel's radio suddenly crackled to life, weak and full of static. Hail, hail, do you copy? His head snapped toward the sound. A familiar voice, Lieutenant Mara Quinn. Daniel swallowed. He pressed the receiver. I copy, Daniel said. Quinn's voice sounded strained but alive. Transports are lifting.
2 minutes. We're almost clear.
Daniel exhaled slowly.
2 minutes.
That was everything. Quinn continued. You're still on the bridge, aren't you? Daniel did not answer. He did not need to. Her voice broke slightly.
Daniel.
Static swallowed the rest.
Daniel closed his eyes for a moment.
Then he opened them and looked at the warlord again. You hear that? Daniel said quietly. 2 minutes. The warlord listened, and its expression changed in a way Daniel could not fully read. Something like respect, perhaps, or regret. The alien commander spoke again, carefully.
If I let them go, it said, will you step away from the charges?
Daniel laughed softly.
You think I can trust you? The warlord's gaze did not move. You have already trusted me more than you realize, it said. You did not trigger it when I approached.
You chose to speak. Daniel's jaw tightened.
The alien was right, and that made him angry, mostly at himself. But he also knew something else. He had learned in war that enemies were not always simple monsters. Sometimes the most dangerous thing was discovering they could think. Daniel lifted the control slightly, letting the warlord see it clearly. You want me, alive, Daniel said. Why? The warlord's voice lowered. Because you are not only defending your people, it said. You are teaching them how to endure, and if the Dominion cannot break that, then we will never truly win. Daniel stared at the alien commander, feeling cold despite the heat of the fires around them. Then he said, If you understand that, then stop this.
You ask me to abandon my empire. Daniel's voice grew harder. I ask you to stop killing people who never attacked you.
The warlord's face tightened. For the first time, it looked like a commander trapped between duty and thought. Behind it, alien soldiers began advancing again, their weapons rising.
The warlord's raised hand faltered. The army was tired of waiting.
Daniel turned his head slightly and watched the far mountains. He could not see the transports, but he could imagine them now, lifting off, engines roaring, climbing toward the sky. He pictured a child looking out a small window, seeing smoke far away, not knowing that one man stood in it for them. His hand settled firmly on the trigger control. The warlord noticed.
Daniel, hail, it said sharply, stepping forward.
Do not. Daniel met its eyes. I don't want to die, Daniel said.
But I want them to live more. The warlord froze. The next 2 minutes felt like the longest of Daniel's life.
Alien soldiers approached slowly. Human aircraft vanished behind clouds. The wind carried ash again. Daniel stayed still, like a statue carved from stubbornness. Then his radio crackled once more.
Hail! Transports are clear, Quinn whispered. They're gone. You did it!
Daniel's chest tightened so hard it hurt. He exhaled a shaky breath. He looked at the warlord one last time. I held it, Daniel said softly. That was the deal I made with myself. The warlord stared back, silent now, as if it had run out of arguments. Daniel's thumb moved.
Not pressing yet. Just ready.
Because now the bridge did not need to be held. Now, it needed to be ended. And in that moment, the alien warlord realized something that no report could explain. Humans did not win wars by being stronger. They won by refusing to let their enemies decide what mattered. Daniel's thumb hovered, the green light pulsing steadily against the steel. And the warlord, for the first time, looked uncertain. The green light on the charge blinked steadily, quiet and patient, as if it had all the time in the universe. Daniel Hale stood beside it, one hand near the trigger control, his eyes fixed on the alien warlord. The air felt heavy. Behind the warlord, alien soldiers advanced slowly, careful and disciplined. Their weapons were raised, but they hesitated each time the commander shifted slightly. It was clear they were waiting for permission to act. Daniel's breathing slowed. The transports were gone. The mission was complete. But the danger was not finished. He knew destroying the bridge would slow the Dominion advance, maybe for days. It would force their army to reroute through narrow mountain paths. It would give humanity time to regroup. Time mattered. Time always mattered. The warlord watched him carefully, its gaze sharp and thoughtful.
You achieved your objective, it said quietly. Your civilians escaped.
So now, the warlord continued, you choose whether to become a martyr. Daniel gave a tired smile. I don't care about being a martyr. Then why hesitate? Daniel looked down at the blinking device. He could press it now. End it. Wall into the canyon with the bridge and end this moment forever. But something held him back. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. Maybe the strange honesty he sensed from the alien commander. You came alone, Daniel said slowly. You stopped your army to talk. That's not normal for a warlord.
The alien tilted its head slightly. I do not follow normal patterns, it replied.
Daniel let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh.
Yeah, I noticed. Silence stretched between them again.
The wind carried dust across the bridge, and distant thunder rolled from orbital fighting far above. The warlord stepped closer, slowly, carefully, as if approaching a dangerous animal. I told you, it said. I came for you.
Still don't understand why. The alien hesitated for a moment before answering. In every war, it said, there are individuals who change outcomes beyond their rank or strength.
Our analysts predicted your death several times.
Each time, you survived and delayed our forces beyond expected limits.
Love. The warlord shook its head once. No.
Choice. Behind the commander, one of the alien officers moved forward, clearly impatient. The warlord raised a hand without looking back, stopping the advance instantly. Daniel noticed that. The alien army obeyed without question. Power radiated from this being, but it was not loud or cruel. It was controlled. You fascinate me, the warlord said quietly. Not because you are strong, but because you continue when strength is gone. Daniel thought about that. He had never considered himself special. He just did what needed to be done.
You're overthinking it, he said. Humans help each other.
That's all. The warlord's eyes flickered again as if processing something deeper. Your species does not always help each other, it said. Daniel smiled faintly. No, but when it counts, we try. Another long silence followed. Daniel's hand stayed near the trigger, but he did not press it. The warlord noticed. You are waiting, it said. For what? Daniel thought carefully before answering. For you to decide, he said finally. The alien's expression changed slightly. You place your fate in the hands of your enemy. No, I place your fate in yours.
The warlord's gaze sharpened. You believe I will stop my army. I believe you might, Daniel said.
And if I do not? Daniel lifted the trigger control slightly. Then we both fall. The alien commander stood still, absorbing the weight of that answer. Behind it, the alien army shifted again. Tanks hovered closer, engines humming loudly. The pressure of the moment built like a storm ready to break. Daniel's muscles trembled from exhaustion, but his eyes remained steady. He was not bluffing. The warlord understood that. A distant explosion lit the sky behind them. The sound rolled slowly across the canyon. The alien commander looked briefly toward the horizon, then back at Daniel.
In my culture, it said, warriors seek victory above all. Daniel waited. But you, the warlord continued, seek protection instead.
That is unfamiliar to us, Daniel swallowed. Maybe that's why you keep losing to us in small fights, he said quietly. The warlord's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but interest.
Explain. Daniel gestured weakly toward the mountains. You fight to conquer.
We fight to protect. Protecting gives people a reason to stand even when they're scared. The warlord fell silent again. Something shifted behind its eyes. A realization, slow but powerful. Another officer stepped forward behind the commander, speaking urgently in a language Daniel could not understand. The warlord listened briefly, then replied sharply. The officer stepped back immediately. Daniel guessed what they were saying. End this. Attack. Move forward. The alien commander looked back at Daniel.
If I withdraw,
It said slowly.
I risk my position.
I risk dishonor.
Daniel nodded. I get that. But if I advance, the warlord continued, you destroy the bridge. My army loses momentum. My superiors question my judgment anyway.
Daniel smiled faintly. Sounds like a bad day either way. The warlord stared at him.
Humor in the face of death, it said softly.
Another human trait?
Daniel's radio crackled again briefly, but no voice came through this time. Only static. He felt very alone, and, strangely, not alone at all. The warlord took one more step forward, now only a few meters away. You believe I can choose differently, it said. I believe everyone can, Daniel replied. The alien looked at the blinking device.
At the canyon below.
At the tired human standing ready to sacrifice everything. Then it turned slightly and raised its arm. Alien soldiers froze instantly. The warlord spoke a command in its own language. A wave of tension spread across the bridge. Daniel blinked slowly.
You're pulling back? He asked carefully.
Temporarily, the warlord said.
I will claim strategic reassessment. Daniel felt something inside his chest loosen slightly. The alien continued. This is not surrender.
It is observation. Daniel nodded. I'll take it. The warlord lowered its arm, and several alien units began stepping backward, slowly creating distance from the bridge. The sound of retreat felt unreal. Daniel watched carefully, still ready to press the trigger if anything changed. You are risking much, he said. Yes, the warlord replied. Why? The alien hesitated. Then it said something unexpected. Because I want to see if your species truly deserves to survive. Daniel let out a small laugh. Fair enough. They stood in silence as alien forces withdrew further. The warlord finally turned back to him. What will you do now, Daniel Hale? Slowly, carefully, he reached down and disarmed it. The green light faded. The warlord watched without moving. "You trust me," it said quietly. Daniel shook his head slightly.
"No,"
he said.
"I trust that you're curious."
The alien's expression softened just a little.
"Curiosity is dangerous." "Yeah," Daniel replied. "But it's also how you learn."
The warlord looked at him for a long moment.
"This is not the end of our meeting," it said. Daniel nodded. "I figured."
The alien turned away, cloak moving behind it as it walked back toward its army. Daniel watched until the warlord disappeared into the smoke. Only then did his knees weaken slightly. He sat down heavily on the cracked concrete, staring at the empty bridge. The battle had paused, not ended. Just paused. And for the first time since the war began, Daniel felt something unexpected. Hope. The silence after battle felt heavier than the fighting itself. Daniel Hale sat against the cracked concrete of the bridge, his rifle resting across his knees. Smoke still drifted through the air, and small fires burned quietly among the wreckage. The alien army had pulled back beyond visual range, leaving the bridge empty except for him and the echo of what had almost happened. His hands trembled slightly now that the danger had passed. He allowed himself one slow breath, then another. He had held the bridge. The thought did not feel heroic. It felt unreal. The sky above shifted slowly as clouds moved apart, revealing faint streaks of light from distant ships fighting in orbit. Somewhere far away, humanity and the Dominion continued their endless struggle. But here, for now, there was quiet. His radio crackled again.
"Hell,
do you read?"
"I read."
Lieutenant Maraquin's voice came through more clearly this time. "We lost your signal earlier. Are you still alive?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Last time I checked."
She let out a breath that sounded almost like laughter. "Command thought you were gone." "Not yet," he said. "What's your status?"
"Enemy advance?" Daniel looked across the empty bridge. They stopped. Silence followed. "They stopped?" Quinn repeated slowly.
"Yeah," Daniel said. "Long story." Command is sending a retrieval team," she said.
"Stay where you are." Daniel nodded, even though she could not see him. "Copy." The line went quiet. He lowered the radio and stared out over the canyon again. The warlord's words echoed in his mind.
"This is not the end of our meeting." Daniel did not know whether to feel relieved or worried about that.
Minutes passed. The wind picked up slightly, carrying ash into the air. The bridge creaked softly under shifting weight and distant tremors. Daniel stood slowly, stretching stiff muscles. Then he felt it. A presence. He turned. The alien warlord walked toward him again from the far side of the bridge, alone. Daniel watched carefully, but he did not raise his weapon. The warlord stopped several meters away.
"I expected you would leave," Daniel said. "I expected you would destroy the bridge," the warlord replied calmly.
Daniel shrugged. "Guess we both surprised each other. You disarmed the charges." "Yeah. Why?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Because you pulled back," he said. "And because maybe this bridge doesn't need to die today." The warlord studied him quietly. "In my empire," it said slowly, "this decision would be seen as weakness." Daniel crossed his arms loosely.
"In mine, it's called giving someone a chance."
The alien's gaze sharpened again.
"You risk much on trust."
Daniel shook his head. "Not trust. Choice." The warlord stepped closer. "I have reviewed battle recordings," it said. "You fight differently from most humans. You do not chase victory."
You hold space. Daniel frowned slightly.
I just try to keep people alive. Yes, the warlord said softly. That is what makes you dangerous.
I don't feel dangerous. The alien's eyes held his. You change outcomes without destroying everything, it said. That challenges our understanding of strength. The wind moved between them. Daniel noticed the warlord's posture had changed, less rigid, less distant, almost thoughtful. What happens now? Daniel asked.
The warlord looked toward the mountains again. My forces will reposition, it said.
Another commander will likely attempt a direct assault elsewhere. Daniel nodded slowly. That sounded realistic.
And you?
He asked.
I will report that continued advance here is inefficient, the warlord said. That is true.
You're bending the truth, he said. The alien did not deny it.
Yes?
Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest.
Why?
He asked quietly. The warlord paused before answering. Because I wish to observe what happens when humans are given time instead of pressure, it said.
I wish to see if your species truly transforms hardship into strength.
Daniel smiled faintly.
Stick around long enough and you'll see. They stood in silence for a while.
The warlord removed its helmet again, revealing its calm but intense face.
I have fought many enemies, it said.
Most seek survival or power. You seek meaning.
Maybe, he said. Why? The warlord asked.
Daniel looked down at the bridge. At the end of the day, he said slowly, people don't remember how strong you were.
They remember what you stood for.
The alien's eyes reflected the fading light.
And what do you stand for? Daniel answered without hesitation. Each other. The warlord remained silent for a long time after that.
A distant sound finally broke the quiet. Human aircraft approaching from the mountains. Rescue teams.
Daniel glanced toward the sky. Looks like my ride, he said.
The warlord followed his gaze.
Then this is where our paths divide, it said.
Daniel nodded.
For now, the alien stepped back slightly. This bridge will become a story among your people, it said. Stories shape wars more than weapons. Daniel laughed softly.
If anyone believes it, they will,
the warlord replied.
Because stories of endurance spread quickly.
Daniel shifted his weight, suddenly feeling how tired he truly was.
You going to tell your people about it too?
He asked.
The alien hesitated.
Yes, it said finally, but not as a defeat.
How then, as a question, the warlord replied. Why does one human stand when logic says, fall? Let me know if you figure it out. The alien returned the faintest hint of a smile. The human aircraft grew louder, engines roaring as they approached the bridge. Searchlights cut through the smoke. The warlord stepped backward again.
Daniel Hale, it said. Yeah?
You changed more today than a battle. Daniel felt the weight of those words settle inside him.
Same to you, he said.
The warlord replaced its helmet, but then it turned and walked away into the fading smoke, disappearing slowly until only empty air remained. Moments later, human soldiers rushed onto the bridge. They stopped when they saw Daniel standing alone. One of them ran forward.
Hale, you're alive!
Daniel nodded weakly as hands grabbed his shoulders, checking him for injuries.
What happened here?
Another asked. Daniel looked back toward where the warlord had stood. He hesitated. Then he said simply, "We held." They guided him toward the transport aircraft waiting nearby. As he stepped inside, he glanced back one last time at the bridge stretching across the canyon. It no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a promise. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, Daniel leaned back and closed his eyes. Below him, the bridge remained standing, scarred but unbroken. And far away, within the ranks of the alien dominion, a warlord carried a new thought into the future. Not all victories required destruction. Sometimes the strongest force in the universe was a single being refusing to step aside. And sometimes that refusal changed everything. The story of the bridge would spread slowly at first, carried by whispers among soldiers and recordings shared between fleets. Galens would speak of endurance. Aliens would speak of curiosity. And somewhere between those stories, the war itself would begin to change. Not because one side became stronger, but because one moment of understanding proved that even in fire, blood, and silence, a single choice could create a different future.